Greetings, fellow rewriters. It's time for a new One More Rewrite podcast, a new year, and some new thoughts on some movies that have come out. Well, I'm here. I'm Jester. He's Lunchbox. Hello. So we're going to kick things off with the stuff that's on everybody's mind, which has been on everybody's mind who's contributed to the $1 billion that Star Wars has made. And I have to say, I'm kind of happy deep in the core of my being that I was actually right on that guess, because there was a little bit of a doubt as to whether Star Wars has now officially beaten out Titanic and Avatar as the highest grossing movie of all time. Asterisks. Maybe Lunchbox should explain the asterisk part of that.
It's the highest grossing not adjusted for inflation.
Yeah.
Because obviously our money's worth a little bit less now than it used to be, so Gone with the Wind is still highest grossing adjusted for inflation.
Adjusted for inflation. But still, I mean, that goes to the... Yeah, it's hard you're sitting here saying, asterisks, but it's true. I guess that in a way goes to the staying power of Gone with the Wind, how well it did when it came out, and the devaluing of the dollar. I guess
right.
That's for our separate economic podcast that we do, the secret hidden one. But it's still, I think, phenomenal that this movie not only did so much money, but I have to say, I'm guessing that it blew past pretty much everyone's expectations, because I was expecting 500-600 million when all was said and done. Not that they would be 1 billion going strong past the holidays. I mean, for a holiday movie, sometimes holiday movies do phenomenally well, like the Lord of the Rings movies.
Right.
Like each one of them made 300 million some odd bucks, and the whole series was made 300 million. So you're talking a franchise that made $1 billion over the course of several years.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1 billion.
Yeah, and it took Avatar a while to get to that. I mean, I think that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the fastest, highest.
Yeah.
It just made a whole ton of money. And did it come out in China yet?
Yeah, it's got the 1 billion via worldwide gross.
Right, but it didn't come out until just I think this past weekend.
In China?
In China.
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that part.
China.
That's without China. That's a lot of ticket sales there, too.
And it's one of the most popular franchises in China.
Yeah,
So once China starts coming in, you're going to be talking about it may be highest of all time, even adjusted for inflation.
Yeah. There's still that to be said, too. It's like once the Chinese people have had their chance to see it over and over again, like those of us in the States.
Yeah.
I just am still blown away. I know, like I've said that already, but it is phenomenal to have a movie that has done that much and at a fairly rapid pace. And you know what? The other thing is everybody liked it, and that's the only way you could make it that
right.
much money. Is not just on people seeing it the first time and telling all their friends to see it, but they're going along with their friends and
going back and watching it over and over again.
There is very little PBF factor, like the Port Bastard factor, and this is the, I don't know, the HBF, Happy Bastard factor. You're like, woohoo! I'm going to see it again.
Yeah, repeat viewership is important to hitting that billion.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's why I totally expected it to make that much. Jurassic World made $1 billion, and Star Wars made $1 billion one day sooner. It was like a day and a half earlier than Jurassic World made $1 billion. I mean, so I figured, we got $1 billion easy out of Star Wars. It was just the question of whether or not it was going to beat Avatar, which you kind of had to figure, but, I mean...
Well, yeah, and Avatar came out in the summer when it came out, so there's a lot more opportunity for people to see it. A lot more people, having disposable income around the summer. They save up for those vacations, or teens in high school going and like, oh, hey, let's go catch a movie. So you'd think that Avatar might have held on to it for a bit longer, but I think the simple fact is, well, I went and saw Avatar. Didn't really enjoy it that much, but I feel I had to see it because it was an experience type movie.
Yeah.
So apparently, like James Cameron had moved the technology forward a bunch, which you could tell on the whole 3D thing. and people are saying, "Oh, it looks so beautiful." To me, it looked like a video game, but whatever. It was still it was pretty to look at. Not much in the depth department, but still pretty.
Yeah.
But nothing I wanted to see over again.
Yeah.
Star Wars, I've already seen it twice. I want to see it a third time. And a lot of people that I've talked to have basically had the same kind of minimums that I had to. It's like, I want to see it regular style, I want to see it 3D, and then I'm going to see it IMAX 3D. And that's 3 ticket sales just out of me.
Yeah.
Now, if just the Star Wars fans are doing that, that's, it's one of the most popular franchises of all time, even without, like, the whole Jar Jar Binks debacle. It's, plus everybody wanted us to win, it's like your favorite team, they're down in the dumps, Casey Jones just stepped up and struck out. You wanted to win. You're like, come on, man, you got to do this for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's the fact also, I guess, that it beat out Jurassic World also kind of surprised me, because Jurassic World had been such a not that it's any less of a phenomenon.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's been way shadowed now by how quickly and how well Star Wars had done.
Yeah.
But let us not forget that Jurassic World also crossed the billion mark.
Yeah.
Not as quickly, and not as with much fanfare.
Right.
But yeah, it's incredible that the 2015 season wrapped up with a couple of movies crossing the billion mark.
Yeah.
Which hasn't happened, I think, in a while.
Yeah, if ever.
If ever, I'm sure.
I think we had a few. Because Furious 7 was this year.
Yeah.
That one crossed $1 billion.
Yeah.
And so there's been a few.
There's been a couple, or a few, but yeah, it's neat that Star Wars has gotten into that category, and it's even neater, again, that it actually lived up to my hopes and expectations. I may have, quote-unquote, called it like a month or so ago before it was released, but it's kind of like, I'm thinking it's going to do it, and in the back of your mind is like, I'm hoping it's going to do it. And not because I have some personal detest of Titanic, which I kind of do, but because I just, it's a home team for the kind of thing. It's a home team kind of feel. I don't know how else to put it. I liken it to your favorite sports team. Like, you pulled out the win, guys. Let's
right.
All right.
You want to see it do well, and it did, and it just seemed like marketed. Like, if it was anything else, you would say that it was over marketed.
Yes.
Like, anything but Star Wars, you would say, wow, they are marketing this to death.
Merchandising. How many things can you
How many cross promotions can you have? The official car of Star Wars.
Yeah, really.
The official beer of Star Wars. The official soft drink of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Like, what would C-3PO drink if he was having a nightcap, he'd be drinking Jack, I don't know. Yeah, you're absolutely right. If it was any other franchise doing the kind of promotion that they were doing, it would kind of cock our heads and go like, we've seen this before. It's like the more promoted it gets, the more you get a little bit leery.
Yeah.
Because it ends up being...
You're pushing this a little hard, guys.
You're pushing this a lot. The harder you push, the more you worry me. But I just chalk that up to everybody wanted a slice of the Star Wars pie, because people had a lot of hope for it. Because after Lucas had sold it, people were like, there's a chance. There's a chance here. We can make this work. And it would seem that Disney's $4 billion investment is really paid off big. I mean, if they make $1 billion on every movie, they'll be, like, okay, 4 years, we've got our investment back, now let's start making money.
Yeah, well, you've got not only the series, but they've got all the spin-off movies that they're doing. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how this goes. Will they be cranking out $1 billion money every year? Don't know. I don't know if you can beat Titanic every time, but I'm thankful it happened at least once.
It's still going.
It's
still going. Think we can hit $2 billion?
Maybe. I'll say $1.5 billion. I'll say I'm confident in $1.5 billion. If it passes $2 billion, I will be very happily surprised. But
I would say $2 billion with home video.
$2 billion with home video.
$2 billion with video.
Okay. We shall see. We'll report back on this later, but $2 billion with video, I can see that. So, in case you were unaware, which you probably weren't, the Christmas season was brightened with splashes of red and green, more specifically lots of red, with a new Deadpool trailer premiering on Christmas Day, and shows a bit more of the X-Men. You have like Colossus in there and a couple others, and it's I don't know if they actually plan on bringing Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool character in the future Apocalypse movie or whatever X-Men movies they plan on doing, but it seems to hint that they're kind of going to try to do a crossover. But so yeah, they dropped a new trailer Christmas Day, has a lot of more cool stuff, and I think it's kind of cool that they dropped a new trailer just a couple months before the movie is released, because I think usually 3 to 4 months out you're just getting TV promos. You're not really getting
not getting the full trailer. It was a full 3-minute.
It was a full 3-minute, and it had again one of the double things, which I think is also kind of cool that they're doing with the Deadpool trailers. Again, you have your green band and then you have your red band, which, again, for those who don't know, green band is the one that you can put in front of almost anything. You just need to make sure it's appropriate to the movie you're showing beforehand. Like if it's a PG-13 movie, generally they'll try to program trailers on that are PG-13 or R sometimes related. But if you're really in the mood for like the guts, gore, and swearing, then there's the red band trailer, which features all the things like the F-bombs and such you can't feature. And
all of the F-bombs, because it's Deadpool.
Because it's Deadpool. And I think that's what makes the Christmas Day release aside, I think that's part of their big push here, that they're really trying to sell you on that. It's not, thankfully, not over marketed, but what they're marketing to you, as I was watching the new trailer, is they're marketing to you the fact that, guys, we really have this character right, okay? You've got the green band that we've got to show in trailers and before movies and such, but if you're the fans that we know you are, you're going to want to see the red band trailer. Like, I've seen the trailer a few times before videos on YouTube, so it'll say, like, click here for the red band.
Yeah.
And I personally find that awesome, because that means that, to me, that they get the character. At least that's what I'm getting.
I've even got, at the end of the trailer, well, the one that I saw anyway, even has Deadpool pop up at the end with Ryan Reynolds saying, "Okay, now that you watched that one, if you want to watch the real one."
Yeah, and I don't know. As we're like nearing it, we've got a month and a few days, because it premieres on Valentine's Day, which unfortunately also has the distinction of being the day that the Daredevil movie was released. I have higher hopes for this particularly red-suited Marvel character. One, because I think the casting fits, and everybody's wanted Ryan Reynolds to be Deadpool for years, including Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, well, I just never could picture anybody else but Ryan Reynolds playing the character. Yeah,
you got the Merc with the mouth. They're really selling that hard, and it's... excuse me, I think that's part of the magic. There's no denying that the magic of this movie that they're selling isn't so much like guns, explosions, and hey, let's go take the whole family along for a fun time, kind of like Star Wars. This is like, we've got a filthy mouth superhero, anti-hero, whatever, in the lead, and he's exactly how you want, and he's who you want. Come see it. And I don't know that I've seen a studio put out ads in that kind of way before, where they are trying hard to sell you, not just on let's go see the movie, but guys, we've got it right. Trust us, Like, it's almost like they
did it right this time.
Yeah, it's almost without looking to the camera and saying, wink, wink, we've got it. Okay, we're in on this. We know that we've got to cast this guy and do it this way. You're not going to like it, so don't worry. We followed that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Is that... This is a quick side thought. Do you think that that's wise for them to do, or is there another film that's ever done this before, like where they've bragged like we've got this without so much saying this, without so much coming out and saying, "Okay, we get it. We're getting out of the way and letting the film be the film." We're not doing an artistic interpretation or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's been plenty of movies. I mean, even if you just look at Star Wars, having the trailer with Han Solo come out and go, "We're back," it's like, I mean, that's kind of your little wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the audience of like, hey, All the gang's back.
Yeah. All the gang's back. What you wanted to see, we've got it. Come see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's true. There's that. That's interesting. I wonder if that's a new thing we're going to be seeing with the upcoming trailers, is the kind of subtle in thing to the audience where it's like, we've got this, guys. Trust us. Come see our movie. So much, and less with the like, ooh, look, there's explosions and boom, you'll love it.
Right.
Or look, there's top-notch acting, rather than a turn to the camera kind of feel.
Right.
Which Deadpool can get away with because that's how the comic is. Personally, I mean, if Ryan Reynolds had one more trailer out right before the movie came out, like in a week or two, and literally turned to the camera as Deadpool and say, you know, like some spiel about, we're making this how you want.
Yeah.
You know, which he's all
Which,
but...
Deadpool, you totally could do that.
You could do that with Deadpool in a way you can't with other characters. But if you broke the fourth wall in that way, I'd be fine with it, because they've all but done it at this point with every trailer. And I actually hope they break the fourth wall in the film, because if they don't, then they've missed out, because that's Deadpool.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens when it comes out, but I'm happy that they're marketing it this way. It's just like, guys, come see our film. Little backpack, we got this, you know, wink wink, we got it. It's cool. Well, another trailer came out recently for a sequel to a movie that I still haven't seen. And I don't know if Lunchbox... You did see? Okay. You see, I don't know if I'm ready yet for what the Nostalgia Critic jokingly called the Faces of Meth Turtles. Yeah. I just still can't get over their look.
You know, I got to say, okay, you had mentioned that to me before, but it bothers you more when you first see it. Like, just watching the trailer, you go, something's weird with these turtles. What the heck is weird with these turtles?
Yeah.
And it takes you a minute to realize that they've got nostrils now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of throws off the symmetry of the face a bit.
Yeah.
But it's just like bothers you in the trailers, because once you start watching the movie, well, for me anyway, I forgot all about it.
Okay.
Like, I just got into the movie, and it's the original one. It was enjoyable. You know, some good action, some nice little wisecracks that you always want to see. Yeah. You know, especially
if it's the turtles, you want some
turtles. You want some wisecracking. So yeah, it was fun. I don't think, not going to be the greatest movie of all time, but we don't expect that from Turtles.
No.
It was just fun. Got some nice little action stuff. You know, it was enjoyable.
Okay.
I liked it.
So yeah, that movie did well enough that they're making a sequel, and a trailer recently dropped for it. And based on Lunchbox's recommendation here, I'll actually take the time and see the first one now, because, yeah, it is unsettling. Even in the new trailer for TMNT 2, it still unsettles me. And maybe that's just a shock moment thing, where you're looking at them again and saying, God, those noses. Yeah. I'm not used to seeing them. I'm almost lamenting the kind of badly done puppets of the third Teenage Mutant. Okay, without being too much of an apologist for the film, I'll go see it. I want to say, though, the trailer that just dropped, I don't know how else to say it other than, like, if it makes me want to see the first one, if only so I have a little bit of backstory so I'm ready to see this new one, because, by golly, they actually have Bebop and Rocksteady. Like, not Toka and Razor or whatever, but the actual Bebop and Rocksteady, which I think we've wanted for years. Yeah. At least Turtles fans. Those of us who are Turtles fans have wanted Bebop and Rocksteady for years. And when we got Toka and Razor,
fans of the cartoon.
Certainly fans of the cartoon. And when we got the weird kind of wolf guy and Racerback turtle thing that we got with the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, I think we all just basically thought, they're Bebop and Rocksteady. They may not say it, but it's Bebop and Rocksteady. And I think that's just because we were kind of masking our disappointment that, like, why didn't you just...
actually Bebop and Rocksteady?
Why didn't you guys just have Bebop and Rocksteady? Come on, guys. It's like, this is easy. This is basic. These are, like, as much as stars of the cartoon as the Turtles are. Or Krang. Which also, there's rumors flying around that he's going to be in it as well, because they have early toy promos.
Oh, really?
Where they're showing that out there. So, yeah. So there's every possibility that they're going to have that. There's buzz going around that there might be, like, the Technodrome, which is another thing. Like, now, love him or hate him, Michael Boom Bay knows how to do explosions and those big kind of, oh my gosh, stuff's blowing up everywhere scenes.
Right, and and he gets a lot of guff, but he makes good movies of that style.
He makes good movies of that style.
Like, he actually, he knows where to put the camera. He's not a bad director when it comes right down to it. It's just that he makes a specific kind of film.
Yeah.
He has a specific set of skills.
Yeah. It's like, you don't tell a carpenter to reprogram your computer and then not expect to find a bunch of hammered up pieces of computer when you come back.
Right. He's good at what he does. He really is. Like, he makes good, big, loud things blowing up and stuff happening everywhere kind of movies, and you'd be kind of disappointed if it wasn't frantic and everything explodes when you go see a Michael Bay film.
Yeah.
But he does it well, Yeah, for all of the guff he gets on the internet about making crummy movies, it's like, well, they may not have the best scripts.
Yeah.
But if you actually watch technically his direction of those, you go, hey, the guy's actually a pretty good director.
Yeah, and I say Armageddon, as dumb as some of the basic plot is, of her sending drillers up to blow up an asteroid, it's still one of my favorite films of all time because, well, one, Bruce Willis, and two, it's got like a great ensemble cast and there's lots of explosions and whatnot, so he knows how to make those kind of films. And even though I was unenthused by the look of the turtles in the first film, and I'm still not very enthused by how they look in this new trailer, obviously they can't do a total revamp or else everybody go like, what the heck?
What'd you do?
What'd you do? What, you caved to the fans? I mean, at least he's keeping it true to the original style, not changing it up just because somebody complained. But I'll actually be interested in seeing this one. One, because I have that heartfelt nostalgia for the Turtles, and wow, they have like Bebop and Rocksteady.
Bebop and Rocksteady. And the one thing, because people keep going, oh, Bebop and Rocksteady, they're finally in it, and everybody's all jazzed about that.
Yeah.
They've got like the pizza van.
Yeah.
Which is basically only ever as a toy.
Yeah, that's true.
They have the van, and it shoots the pizzas out the front.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, that's a total homage moment there.
Like the little metal pizza discs. It shoots right out the front.
I think it's like manhole covers, but yeah. It's got,
no, but
they're shaped like a pizza.
Like
they look like pizzas because it's supposed to be like a pizza delivery van thing that they converted. That's awesome too. I mean, like, that's one of those toys I never got to own either because it was like super pricey back in the day, and probably now on eBay it's even pricier.
Even pricier now.
Yeah, but that admittedly too is kind of cool. That was a character into itself, and the fact that that's going to be in the movie as well is kind of. Whereas the first one was trying to do this, we've got another origin story going on. We've got the Shredder. Don't worry, we've got the Shredder. They're trying to build up their brand and rebuild, I guess, because I don't know if the Turtles need rebranding because I don't think they've ever gone away since they first popped on the scene in the '80s with the cartoon.
Not really, and if they did, not for long.
Not for long.
I think that.
This is really tapping into the 80s, early 90s cartoon nostalgia right here.
Tapping into cartoon nostalgia. This is like, okay, we know the first one we were just trying to do something, a little more action, kind of thing. And, maybe a little more serious in spots and things like that. And in this one, it really seems like we're making a live action version of the cartoon you loved when you were a kid.
Yeah, which... I love as much as I love the first film, and the first film really is actually when you go back and watch it, it's still. Yeah. I know it's a movie about giant talking turtles, but it still
totally holds up.
It totally holds up. It holds up surprisingly well, thanks in large part to the Muppet effects by the Jim Henson Company that they did for the Turtles, and for the way the characters are, and the story doesn't cheat, and you've got. At the time, which was all shocking, you had Raphael swearing in the film. And not just obligatory, like I'm dropping F-bombs or something stupid, but it fits with his character. And I don't know. So this film really does touch into that kind of nostalgia that I think the first original Turtles movie also kind of dipped its toe into. But yeah, there's something about seeing the pizza van, the converted fighting pizza van, that you're like, wow, this is like going full out. Like, we're hitting...
They're going... full bore. We are going to hit all of your nostalgia spots.
Yeah, right there.
Little kids aren't going to get it, but they're going to get it because it's going to be brand new to them. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, the parents that are taking their little kids to see it are going,
it's amazing, man! Look, son, look. Like, yeah, it's awesome. You know, like
it's going to shoot metal pieces out the front, I tell you.
Yeah, that's true. There's now parents taking their kids to see this who are just as jazzed as the kids who are going to go watch this in a few months and say, like, oh, it's the man, it's the man. And I should say before we wrap up this segment, as like kind of a throwaway almost, they also have Casey Jones. Which I think was kind of cool, too.
Hardly a throwaway. Casey Jones was my favorite character.
Casey Jones was kind of a cool character. He's like in the cartoon, he was like this, like they're meeting him somewhat psychotic. I'm trying to help you guys.
Yeah.
He was like just shy of being the Punisher, only without the guns, because he would rampantly, like, just, beat the crap out of people with a hockey stick and such.
Beating the crap out of people.
He just, like, but he thankfully focused that rage on...
on the bad guys,
on the bad guys, on the Foot Clan. But yeah, Casey Jones is also in this film. Now, the funny thing is maybe that's another before we wrap this up. Is a side note: rarely do two villains appearing in the same film work.
Yeah.
However, you cannot have just Bebop or just Rocksteady, and I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to have like Shredder be in it as well. Like, despite how the other film was.
Right, and, typically, second film, you ramp it up and you have more villains. Bebop and Rocksteady is one villain, by the way.
The Bebop and Rocksteady, you count as one villain because you can't have one without the other.
Right.
They're the dynamic duo of the Turtles franchise.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't fault them for that, because there are other films out there, such as Batman and Robin, where they threw, like, Poison Ivy and Bane and, Mr. Freeze.
The Punster.
The Punster. The Happy Punster.
I call him the Punisher.
Yeah. Yeah. Where... Yeah, that's been a thing for a while now, hasn't it? Where they just like throw in a crap load of villains into the second one just to...
Yeah, or like, and as each sequel builds, they have to add more and more villains. Like, even in the new Batman series, they kept adding more and more villains.
Yeah. But, like, I kind of forgive it in that case because it was done as a fake-out, in a way.
Yeah.
So that's a little more forgivable to me than something like... not just the Batman and Robin. I was thinking of something else where it was like, really, we're going for like 3 million. Oh yeah, Spider-Man 3, where you had like Green Goblin's son and Sandman and Venom, and you're just like, I don't need this many villains. They can't all be in on this like let's kill Peter Parker together kind of thing. It's just
they clearly weren't working together, so it makes no sense at all.
So no, it makes no sense. It just makes
at least Batman Forever, Two-Face and Riddler were working together.
Yeah. But this works for me. The fact that Bebop and Rocksteady are in it, because they're essentially to me one villain.
Yeah, they're one villain.
If they had, in fact, I would go so far as to say if they only had Bebop or only had Rocksteady, I would be pissed.
Yeah,
and say like, what is this horse hockey? There's no way you could have just one of them. What are you saving the other guy for the sequel? Yeah.
They come. That's a package pair.
It's a package pair, and
I think I don't think Shredder. I think they'll just do Krang.
You think they'll just go straight to Krang? Okay.
Yeah, just from the trailer, I think that probably there's the mastermind.
Yeah, you gotta. Well, that would be a great thing too, because in the cartoons, Bebop and Rocksteadies were always kind of like the meatheads that kept on getting thrown at the turtles. So
you have Krang, orchestrating
and all. Yeah. So if there was like a lot of back puns about like we got to find out who's the big brain behind this all and whatnot, then I would tolerate that pun too, just because like, ooh, they're hinting at Krang. We get to see a big screen Krang. But we'll see how it develops. I'm hoping that if Krang is in the film and isn't just like some weird toy thing, that they don't show that in the trailers. Whatever else might come up, there probably will be.
I want it to be a surprise.
I want it to be a big reveal
when I find out that obviously it's Krang.
Yeah, it's kind of is like that. I want it to be a big surprise when I find out what I already knew. I like that kind of surprise in my life.
It's my favorite kind.
Yeah. All right, so apparently the studio heads who put out the first Pacific Rim are not feeling the love and. How do you say his name?
Guillermo del Toro.
Thank you very much. apparently his dream of seeing a second Pacific Rim is not going to happen. It's been shelved indefinitely, which doesn't surprise me too much, seeing as the first one kind of did mediocre at the box office. Yeah. I don't want to say flopped, but it did.
I wouldn't say flop. It wouldn't go that hard at it. I think that it did okay.
It did okay. That have to include worldwide box.
Yeah, it wasn't like big.
It wasn't
big.
But
it did okay.
So to speak. Puns. Kaiju feel the fun? Anyway, so I'm trying to work in a kaiju pun, and it's just not happening the way I want it to. Oh well. Del Toro's sequel is not going to happen by the looks of it, which kind of bums me out. This is the same thing that happened in a way when I feel almost the same I did when it was announced that like Tron 3 was going to happen. Then all of a sudden it's not going to happen. We're going to show.
Not even close to Tron 3. I am
true. Tron 3.
Disappointed at all that they're not making a Pacific Rim 2.
I liked Pacific.
I think it was so unnecessary to make a Pacific Rim 2.
Okay.
Like, the first one was...
It was okay. It was basically an Americanized version of a Godzilla film, for lack of a better comparison.
Yeah.
Without Godzilla. It was Godzilla film without Godzilla.
Right.
And big robots fighting big monsters. I saw it on opening night at a midnight show. It was fun. It wasn't anything that I felt the need to go back and see repeatedly, have it on video and sometimes watch, because it's fun to see a big giant robot swing a aircraft carrier at a monster.
Yeah.
But yeah, a sequel, it didn't really feel necessary, and I guess the studio heads felt the same. I feel kind of sad because I don't get to see that again. There is something kind of neat about seeing large monsters and robots battle out on the big screen, but I don't know. It's, how do you say, it's part and parcel for what happens in Hollywood is you've got a movie that you think would do well. Like, it sounds like something that's going to do phenomenal and will do great. Maybe not in video sales, but will do great at least on the big screen because people want that kind of experience.
Right.
And it does not translate well onto the small screen. I mean, you don't get that sense of scale. Like, I saw it like in an IMAX theater, and it's fantastic, to watch those huge things happening.
I can imagine that probably, which is probably why I have a different perspective on it than you do, is because I waited until video to watch it.
Yeah.
And it just, I can imagine that you just don't get that same sweeping sense of, awe and wonder at the giant robot fighting the giant lizard or whatever the kaiju are.
The kaiju, that's a Japanese name, but like most people here in the States refer to it that way anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's funny because it also underlines for me something I've thought about, which is that if a movie just relies solely on effects, which I'm sometimes okay with because you just needed escapism, but if it's obvious that it's not going to translate to the small screen even with the effects, because some movies do, Jurassic Park and I'm sure Jurassic World translate just as well to the small screen because you're still watching thinking those dinosaurs look so flippin' real,
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something about the sense of scale for certain effects movies where it's just totally lost and you just can't get that same feel, and that's probably why they aren't making the sequel. Is I'm betting that the numbers. I work at a used retail video type store, and I don't see Pacific Rim going through that often. I see a lot of other action blockbuster movies that have come out, people buying those up, but I think it doesn't translate, and that's unfortunate for films like that. It's just like they have to sort of put all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
It's like if it bombs at the box office, don't expect a sequel, or if it doesn't do well, don't expect a sequel because people aren't going to snatch it on video.
Yeah, well, because on video you kind of need that more of a storyline.
Yeah, I was going to say, you kind of need a plot, and you need characters, maybe a little development.
Which is why no matter how hard they tried to push Avatar on video, nobody wants to see Avatar on video.
No.
It's just like, it's a waste of time. Like,
there are so
Avatar
many...
was purely 3D IMAX movie. That's it. Go home.
And that's probably why it's going to be surpassed, and why it has been surpassed, I should say, by Star Wars, is that there's movies that are experience movies that if you don't pull in the numbers like Pacific Rim didn't, then don't expect to see a sequel. Don't expect, even if the director is totally wanting to do that next film, it's not going to happen. And I guess I'm also wanted to bring this one up because Del Toro also directed one of my favorites, which was the Hellboys. And
Yeah.
there's that they really want to make a third one. Ron Perlman really wants to make a third one.
Yeah.
But because the second one was kind of an experience movie, there was a lot of moments in the second one that were just like, they don't translate to the small screen.
Yeah.
The story overall was okay, but it's just you get to the small screen, you're kind of like, this probably looked cool bigger.
It's probably pretty awesome on the big screen.
This is probably pretty awesome on the big screen, but because it didn't pull in those numbers, you're not going to see the sequel that you might want to see. And I don't know, maybe I just have a soft spot because I did enjoy the film when I saw it, and I'd like to see big robots fighting big monsters again on the screen. But for now, it's not going to happen. And
I'm sure you'll get your chance with some other movie that's not
there's
named
going
Pacific Rim.
to be a chance probably, but I enjoy Del Toro's style, so I'm kind of like bummed that whoever makes it won't be him. Maybe that's the other thing
yeah.
too.
Yeah,
But,
Del Toro does. Yeah, he's a good director.
He's a good director, so we'll see. You know, who knows? Maybe in a few years, Del Toro will have a few hits, and Pacific Rim 2 will be that quote-unquote movie that he always wanted to make.
Yeah.
Although I really hope that he focuses his energies on, like, a Hellboy 3, if he gets a chance to make the movie he always wanted to make.
If he gets a chance to make the next movie that he always wanted to make,
Yeah.
I'd rather it be Hellboy 3.
I'd rather it be Hellboy 3. So maybe this actually is a blessing in disguise. He'll be able to refocus his efforts on poking the studios to go make that Hellboy 3 movie.
Yeah.
We'll see. Alright, so even though it was not the mega blockbuster that I thought it was, I want to talk a little bit about Mad Max Fury Road, because George Miller has talked a bit about it recently, and that he would like to make sequels to it, and, by Tom Hardy has been signed on for multiple sequels in the future.
Right.
And even though Mad Max did not perform nearly as well as it hoped, and in fact it kind of underperformed,
Yeah.
he still really wants to do the sequels. Tom Hardy's on board with it. And because Mad Max Fury Road actually had a good amount of critical acclaim, I think that it's going to happen. I mean, like, we were reading this article the other day about how George Miller wants to do a sequel and he wants to do a Furiosa spinoff, but he also wants to do another movie first before he starts doing Mad Max type stuff again, which that's understandable. You don't want to be locked into known as the Mad Max guy.
Got to imagine. Well, he's going to be the Mad Max guy.
He's going to be the Mad
as
Max
he
guy
lives.
as long as he lives.
but
But-
I can definitely understand after going through what I'm sure was kind of a difficult shoot
Yeah.
with Mad Max. I mean, he had a lot of practical effects and basically chasing them across the desert the whole time at full speed. I can imagine how after that you'd want to do a small, plot-driven film with focus more on character. Something a little quieter, maybe. I can certainly understand that. I understand the desire, but that means that even if you can knock out your little independent flick in a year, which not unheard of, you can certainly do a smaller film in a year. Then it's not until you're talking if he does it this year, he's not starting until 2017. Talking 2018 before he's finished, possibly 2019, depending on when you can get the things to line.
The stars to align
align.
so they can release the film. And, I'm fine if I have to wait 4 years for another Mad Max, because I think at this point I kind of understand how the studio, I don't want to say the studio system because that hasn't been around for a while.
Yeah.
But you understand how it works with producers, executives, and whoever else has their fingers in the pie, how things get moving. I mean, for example, like the Marvel Studios, they pop out a movie every year.
Yeah.
Every year. And if they're popping out a sequel, it's every 2 years. And that's like, when they say it's a production company, it really is a production, like just they are in production. And I'll just mean like, and action. Like, it's like they're like
it's a production line.
It's like a production line. We're talking like, manufacturing plant here. Like, as soon as you got to figure there was maybe a couple of months delay, or maybe half a year delay between the shooting and finishing and wrapping up and promoing of the original Captain America movie. And it was like something like 2.5 years later. And then they had the second Captain America, Winter Soldier, popped out because, not only were they banking on it making money, but they were like, yeah, they were moving on it. So
yeah,
when you have a...
and it sounds like Disney's doing the same thing with the
Star Wars. There's like... which means their actors are really going to be like working hard, which makes me appreciate the film series a lot more, is because they aren't going to really have a respite from being there and doing the lines and working through stuff. But back to George Miller, the fact that if he goes and he does an independent film, and that's like a year or so, and then he comes back to the Mad Max series, and since you've kind of made it a reputation for like it's just such a well done action movie that even though it didn't make the money, it was still highly critically acclaimed, that a studio I think would be willing to lose a little bit of money to say, we have this highly critically acclaimed movie that, like, it was an action movie, but it was a movie that everybody loved. Universally, I saw this, it was like 90-something% on Rotten Tomatoes, that they'd do that just so they have that kind of, like, I don't know, almost like as a trophy, like, hey, there's my Mad Max award, that they'd wait the time, they'd make the movie, even though they aren't going to be trying to crank it out like a Marvel/Star Wars style, that they would still be willing to, like, if George Miller does his independent film and quote-unquote takes a break from Mad Maxing and comes back to it, I think they'd still be willing to do it, after a bit of respite, just to say, like, okay, you know what you were doing before, we'll let you do it again.
Yeah.
That it's not like this isn't going to happen.
It took them forever to get Fury Road made, and, like, if anybody knows how to make Mad Max movie... George Miller.
It's like, no, trust me, I can make this. And it's like, oh yeah, he does really know how to make this. This is incredible. And if he wants to, like, he finally gets the movie made, and if he wants to take a break from that before starting the next one, I'm fine with that, because I loved it, the critics loved it, and even though it didn't make the money, I think there is something to be said for prestige in a way.
Yeah.
For a studio, like, that they have other films that can make the money, and even if this one only breaks even, that...
Yeah, like, that to have something that, the critics love, or a critical darling.
Yeah.
A little bit of prestige for that. Certainly, okay.
Well, come on, think of all those films you've seen from the studio that brought you Mad Max Fury Road, the critically acclaimed Mad Max Fury Road, or from the director of the highly acclaimed da-da-da-da-da. And, like, that is advertising in itself. Like, it's costly advertising because you only broke even on your movie.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I guess I'm thinking that there has to be a mentality in it that you might take a bath, or at least be willing to break even on a film and let another one in that vein be made, because then you can have, I don't know, like Paramount has their library of pictures and Fox has their library of pictures.
Might even, depending on the other nominees in the category, might even end up at the end of the year being able to say the Academy Award winner.
Academy Award nominated.
I've
heard early buzz for Best Picture for this film. Surprisingly.
I've heard that. I'm not going to go that far yet. I got to see the rest of the nominees. But I think certainly strong contender for sound design. Yeah.
Sound design, effects. I would say costuming, makeup.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So the award-winning, critically acclaimed director, Mad Max, returns to the beloved Mad Max franchise. So, even though it may be a few years, I think that we'll see another Mad Max by George Miller, because
I think especially if it can pick up an Oscar or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it picks up see, now you're coming around to my way. It's like, it's worth it for them if they can make a few awards and get those nods at the Oscars. Then that's like, go ahead and make a second one, because you not only knew what you knew what you're doing so well that it pleased both the public and critics alike, which isn't easy to do.
Costume design.
Design for sure. Yeah. Time now for Thank God for Video, that part of the podcast where we tell you what movies you should go out and rent on Blu-ray, DVD, Betamax, or just download to your personal computer via iTunes or Amazon or whatever other streaming way you can find it. This week I've got a classic film, really, when you think about it. That'd be Journey to the Center of the Earth, starring James Mason and Pat Boone and Arlene Dahl. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. We'll just say Dahl. Obviously based on the book by Jules Verne, and it details the scientist who finds a clue on how to get to the center of the Earth. via like an intricate network of caves, and he takes along a friend with him, like friend slash student, who actually puts him onto this clue, and they like travel from where they are in Germany over to like somewhere in Switzerland, I believe it is,
Yeah, I
like
think so.
some Nordic state. I'm forgetting at the top of my head.
Gotta be Nordic because Pat Boone shows up.
Because Pat Boone shows up. And not only that, but you've got the one guy who plays Hans Belker, who's like this huge hulking, like manservant basically,
Right.
that they hire to help them down the caves as they traverse to the center of the earth. And there's a nice little side story where they basically have an excuse to include the lovely Arlene Dahl as a wife of a competitor who is also trying to get to the center of the earth, but died. I don't think that's really a spoiler because they tell you that within like the first 15 minutes of the film, but she's along to make sure that his legacy is protected as well. And
Arnie Samuelson, right?
Saknussemm. That's how you say it. Saknussemm.
Been a while since I've seen it.
It's been a while since I've seen it. But like actually they meet like some descendant of the original guy who sent the clue along hundreds of years ago to find the center of the earth. And well, I just want to start off by saying it's a fantastic adventure movie for any time period. It's the effects, well, obviously very,
Well, isn't it Harryhausen?
I don't know if it's Harryhausen. It's like
It's certainly stop motion.
There's stop motion. There's obvious lizards with fins taped on their back, and they're dinosaurs that were hidden away at the center of the earth. But barring that...
Oh, that's right. It was just blown up lizards.
It was blown up lizards, and there were some other kind of, surprisingly for the time, actually kind of gruesome effects, too.
Yeah, definitely.
But, not to get sidetracked by the effects, because you don't see too much of that, it does give you a sense of, like, they're going, this, like, little group of, scientists and such are going to the center of the earth, they're on this journey, exciting things happen from inside earthquakes to flooding from underground rivers to what have you, to giant lizards, so dinosaurs, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But it's also well done. It's also well acted because, well, one, it has Pat Boone, and James Mason and Arlene Dahl, the leads, and they do such a great job of well, not just selling the atmosphere, but they have such great chemistry together that when they're excited for something, you're excited along with them. When they're afraid of something, they really sell it so that it's not just like, whoa, I'm scared of this giant lizard that's whatever, blue screen, green screen in front of me.
Right.
But, if it wasn't for their great acting and the great writing, it wouldn't go as nearly as far. And it takes a while. And the pacing takes a while for them to get to that point where they're actually starting to go underground. But the build-up even to them going underground is great. And it's nothing like the book. Having read Journey to the Center of the Earth, the actual story, because I loved this movie so much as a kid. I watched it over and over again when we had it on VHS, and now I have it on DVD. And thankfully those don't wear out the same way. Yeah. I don't have to adjust the tracking on my DVD. Not nearly as much, anyway.
not near as often.
Not near as often. It's the technology's there, so you only have to adjust the tracking once or twice. But it's just fun. I know that's probably something I say a little too often, but it's fun. It's enjoyable. The acting is top notch. It's not like the book, but really, having read the book it's of its time. There's whole like giant men also down in the center of the earth. They're giants, and yes, there are dinosaurs, and there's other weird stuff that they couldn't have done even with a nice effects budget at the time. Yeah. Which there was a remake with Brendan Fraser. Fraser. There was a movie made in 2008 with good old Brendan, and it's not the one I'm talking about, just to also be clear. The Journey to the Center of the Earth 3D. No, do not see that one.
Because you needed to see it in 3D. There is no reason whatsoever to watch it if you're not watching it on a big screen in 3D.
Yeah, really. That's another one of those translates. I liked it.
for the 3D visual effects. There were some cool effects in there.
Yeah.
No reason at all to watch it on video.
No,
ever.
Not at all.
And I like Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, it just... like, we're not here to talk about the bad movie, though. that's the movies that needed a rewrite segment. But
different segment.
That's a different segment entirely. We're talking about why you should go see James Mason in all his glory. And I don't know what else to say about this film other than if you don't already own it, that it's worth owning. Because you can find it for relatively cheap, not just as a download, but probably if there's a video store somewhere near you, if they still exist where you are, that you could probably find it for anywhere from $5 to $10. And yeah, it's infinitely rewatchable. Like the I don't know, you get the sense watching it that a better idea of how to cast people together as both an ensemble and as individuals, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where like they play well by themselves, but when they're together, you like feel even more that they're actually the people they're playing on screen because they're so lost in the character that they're doing that.
Yeah.
You know, like James Mason, like he was also in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and him being the commander there, I'm totally blanking on Captain Nemo.
Yeah,
he sells it as Nemo, and he's the bad guy-ish in that. And here as Sir Oliver Lindenbrook, he sells it as this professor of, I think it's archaeology professor.
I think so. It's been years.
Yeah. But yeah, that he sells these archaeologists on this grand expedition, taking notes and whatnot. And he's lost in the moment of like, look at all this stuff I'm finding here underground, all these suppositions that we had about what it would look like are not what we expected, and I don't know.
And really kind of that, like, the scientific mindedness of that. Of like, yes, and wow, I can't believe that we're finding these particular kind of crystals down this far.
Yeah, and that's another thing with the movie. It's not like, there's some kind of action-y, quote-unquote, sequences in it, but a great portion of the film is devoted to their wonderment at, I guess, scientific discovery. Like, look at these crystals, look at this.
Yeah,
and
really.
They spend half the film as they're journeying under the earth in what amounts to almost like business suits at the time for the 1800s. It's that's also kind of funny. They're not like in these like geared up whatever. They have gear with them, but they're dressed to the nines down there, as they go caving or spelunking, however you want to put it. But the scientific wonderment, I think, is also a big selling point on it. That they're not just sitting there going, ooh, at a special effect, but they're like almost half going into a scientific, like, it's because of this and this that they were able to have the whatever, and they make that in itself seem exciting. It's weird, even though looking back on it, that their science is off, but they make it sound. It's basically 1960s technobabble.
Yeah,
but it feels
essentially.
But it essentially feels real. Anyway, I don't know if you have anything else to add to it, but if you don't already own it,
I loved it growing up because they used to show it on Disney Channel all the time.
Yeah.
Growing up, so like you'd be flipping around the channels and be on. You're like, oh, I love this movie. I want to watch this movie. And it wasn't until years and years later, probably about 10 years ago, when I went back and watched it again, because I too own it on DVD. Went back and sat down to watch it. I did not realize how long that movie is.
It is long.
It is long. It's like 2.5 hours, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
It is really long movie. Like, I didn't realize how long it is.
It's a little over 2 hours, like 2 hours, 15 minutes from this.
Yeah, see, so, like, you're like, wow, this movie's longer than I remember it being. But I don't remember thinking it was that long when I was a kid.
No.
Like, I was just, like, totally enthralled by it as a kid watching it.
Yeah.
And definitely, one that I still enjoy. I haven't gone back to watch it in a while, and I probably should, because really, I really love it. Yeah, great movie.
For an old school movie, it's very enthralling. I like that. Yeah.
Yes, enthralling.
Enthralling is a good way of putting it. It's enthralling. So, what do you have for us this time, Lunchbox, for your Thank God for video?
Well, I'm going to go with a movie that you probably haven't seen. Black Dynamite.
No, that's true. I haven't seen it.
Produced, written by, starring Michael Jai White.
Okay.
Who is actually has like 7 black belts in different disciplines.
Yeah.
Fabulous martial artist. But he plays Black Dynamite.
Okay.
As you might expect.
Yeah.
It's a satire of the 70s blaxploitation flicks.
As you might guess by the title.
Yeah, as you might guess by the title. And it's real, well, basically Black Dynamite has to clean up the streets and save his town. It's basically your standard blaxploitation, kind of
gotta clean up this town.
Clean up this town, help
drive out the thugs, help the common
get rid
person.
of the pimps, and we gotta,
yeah,
clean up the, get the smack off of the streets, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and really the plot isn't important. It's all basically.
I was gonna say, so we really need to talk about plot because it sounds if it's a real 70s blaxploitation spin-off type thing.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what the plot is.
No,
but it's incredibly great. It's shot entirely like it actually is a 70s flick. Like, it's got, like, they used all the same lenses and filters.
Oh,
and
nice.
You've got the split screen and the boom randomly. Yeah, and the boom randomly roaming into the shot and everything. Cause those flicks, they would just shoot them and go, okay, we're on to the next scene.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter because they didn't have the money to reshoot.
No, it was a very Ed Wood kind of guerrilla style film. Like, okay,
Yeah.
got it in the one take. Good, let's go.
And it's one take and we're on to the next one. And as long as you've seen Black Mama, White Mama, Dolomite, Avenging Godfathers, Foxy Brown, Sweet Sweet Badass Song, can't remember all of the movies that they reference in it. But they reference pretty much all of them.
I was gonna say, make sure you do your homework, kids.
Do your homework, kids. If you've seen all of those movies, you will get all of the references in it. You totally don't have to have seen any of those movies to think that it is hilarious.
Okay.
I actually was working at Blockbuster. I had some kids came in all the time. They were looking for something new to watch. I'm like, this is one of the funniest movies I've seen all year. They were like 14, 15, probably a little young to have seen this with all the naked women and the people getting shot all the time.
It's a blaxploitation
And quite a bit of foul language. But they basically watched everything else in the store, so I figured I was okay. And they came back and told me that they thought it was hilarious. And I know for a fact they haven't seen all of the blaxploitation flicks.
Yeah.
It's just funny on its own. Because there's enough of those tropes that we know, from just being a low-budget film.
Yeah.
Because we've all seen a low-budget film, and you kind of get that. And just because of how cheesy it is in places and things like that, and how over-the-top some of it is.
Yeah.
It's just, but it's totally in that style. It's not being over the top. It just happens to be over the top because it's in that style.
Yeah.
So, yes, loved it to die. Like, I watched it, first time, laughing through the whole thing. I thought it was really funny. And then I watched the commentary on it. And on the commentary, they go through, each scene, and they're talking about all of the references they make. And they go, oh, watch this. Here comes the boom in the shot. Look, you can see Michael Jai White keeps stinging the boom, trying to get the cameraman to get it out of the shot.
Yeah.
Didn't notice that when I was watching it the first time, though. And, you see it, and then I just rewatched it before we did the podcast. And I, can't help but watch it now. He's just, sitting there flinching, trying to get the cameraman to notice there's a boom in this shot. And, and scenes cutting out too early and cutting out too late. It's just, and it's all done on purpose, and it is all so perfectly done. So, watch it once through just to enjoy the film and laugh, and then watch it again with the commentary so that you can get all of the references. Because I've seen a few blaxploitation films. I haven't seen them all. And I haven't seen half of the ones that they reference. So it's definitely worth listening to the commentary so that you can hear about all of the references that they put into it. and so that they can point out all of the gags to you, so that when you go back with 5-6 years later and watch it again, which you will because it's funny, and you watch it again, you notice all of those little things. And Arsenio Hall playing one of the Avenging Godfathers, he's one of the pimps in the room that's referencing Avenging Godfathers. And it's just, you notice all of the little things that they put in because they've told you about all the little things that they put in.
Yeah.
And they all come out, and it makes it so much better for the watching. So, yes, you can get it on demand. Go out, pick up the DVD so that you can watch the commentary too, because it will so much increase your understanding and love of the movie. And it's just, but it's a really funny movie on its own, even without all that.
I was gonna say, it sounds like it'd be a great gateway too if people weren't familiar with the blaxploitation genre, and we're kind of like, maybe I'll watch one of these. It might be something that's like, okay, now I've got to watch one of the actual films rather than just the send up.
yeah, exactly. And you kind of want to go back and watch Foxy Brown and Dolomite after watching it, because it really is. It's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, so be sure to check those out. Time now for movies that needed a rewrite, whether they were absolute garbage from the beginning, failed at the end, or just totally fell apart from beginning to end. These are the shows that, well, they might have been okay or total trash. They needed a bit of tweaking here and there to make them the great movies that they could have been, or at least acceptable. This week for us, Lunchbox has
Big Game.
Big Game. Sounds familiar. Remind us what it is.
It's the one where Samuel L. Jackson plays the president.
Oh, okay.
And gets his plane shot down.
That's right.
I believe over Norway?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's over Norway.
Yeah, those like kind of Nordic kind of countries.
Somewhere up there. And basically the terrorists are trying to hunt him down. A little local boy that's sent out on his 13th birthday to go shoot some big game to prove that he's a man.
Yeah.
Finds him and helps him escape from the bad guys. All in all, an enjoyable film. It's basically exactly what you expect this movie to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say. It's like it looks like what you expect it to be.
You're not expecting like big, action blockbuster. Kind of. Well, you're expecting big action blockbuster. You're not expecting, you're not expecting
King Lear. You're not expecting great character development. You're expecting the president to be running around with a 13-year-old boy having action adventure and so.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Which, well, obviously dialogue a bit hackneyed, which, you're going to expect in that.
This is also expected.
The direction, which is from the director of Rare Exports, which I don't know if you've ever seen. That's
Shakes head no.
Excellent fantasy horror film about Santa Claus. Jalmari Helander. Actually, he's not that good of an action director. The action doesn't really play that well. I don't think that it was very well directed. But I don't think that's why it didn't do well. And really, so my rewrite isn't so much about what was wrong with the movie, although the direction and hackneyed dialogue, but, you can kind of get past that and go with it.
You can get past that in a lot of films.
And I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun little film. What the problem was that none of the trailers really told you anything about what the plot was.
Yeah.
And part of it was because they cast Oni Tamila,
Like
who was also in Rare Exports, who I assume is finished, like the director.
Yeah.
Well, then how do you know when he's done? And
Puns. Okay.
Theme of the day.
Yeah.
But I think it's because they had him crash in Norway or wherever, rather than somewhere with some Americans. Because you could have totally sold that if you had some kid in the Appalachians
Yeah.
You could do that. You could have them crash in the Appalachian Mountains. There's plenty of woods up there.
Yeah.
You could have some backcountry kid that's out trying to prove to his dad, played by Ted Nugent, that he can kill a deer with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
And you've got exactly the same movie, except you've got an American kid leading him around, and you don't have, a third of the first, 20 minutes in subtitles. Really, which, I don't have a problem with subtitles.
Yeah.
But you ain't selling that to the mass American audiences, and that's what you needed to do with this movie.
Yeah.
I saw the trailers, and big game, I didn't realize until I was watching the movie that big game referred to hunting.
Yeah. I wouldn't have gotten that from the trailer.
I didn't know. From the trailers, I'm like, big game. So you're referring to this Sunday's football game?
Yeah.
It's something about the Super Bowl?
It's like there must be a football analogy I'm missing here because I don't really watch so many sports or something. Yeah. Okay, so that's a little crucial detail left out of the trailers.
Yeah.
And that's not really something that sounds like a spoiler to me.
Yeah, it didn't sell it. They couldn't sell it because they had a kid any of the intro of the kid and explaining why he's going out there and what he's doing was all in subtitle. And you're not going to put that in a trailer because ain't nobody going to show up to your film. If you put that in the trailer, they're like, what? They're talking foreign? I
don't know. If you had it kind of cheesy, comical, where the kid is being introed, and like, okay, Dad, I'm going to go out and whatever. Seemed like a heartfelt, oh gosh, it's one of those schmaltzy Hallmark movies made into a big screen thing. And all of a sudden the plane crashes or something, and out steps Samuel Jackson. And like, I'm tired of these mother,
right, except they made it PG, so he couldn't even say
it was PG?
PG-13.
PG-13. I was like, I thought it was PG-13.
PG-13. But you can't say mother PG
whatever.
show.
Yeah. And see, I think maybe if they would have done that, they could have sold it better. But 20 minutes, first reel essentially, and Swedish.
No, it wasn't like the whole thing because they had the part with the villain, with the cheesy villain dialogue. You had the part where you were introducing the people on the plane with the president. Yeah. And then you've got the people that are back home in the bunker that are trying to find the president. Yeah. So you've got kind of like the three. And Tilda Swinton is in this movie.
Really?
And criminally underused.
I was going to say, they didn't show her the trailers from what I recall either.
Just barely in the movie. Barely in the movie. I'm like, you get Tilda Swinton and not use her. Jim Broadbent, excellent in the film. And you get just enough Jim Broadbent to make that work. But it's just, need way more Tilda Swinton as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I think that you could have had... I guess this movie is never going to be like Top of the Pops billion-dollar movie. Yeah. But you at least could have done twice your business. Easy. If you would have just made that kid American kid in the Appalachians rather than a Norwegian kid in the Alps or whatever the mountains are in Norwegian.
Up in the Nordic area.
Yeah, some Nordic mountains.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, that just sounds like a misfire. Yeah. But like a misfire on the director and writer's part on trying to put it there rather than somewhere more local. And you can overlook like sometimes poor directing and hacky dialogue. And cheesy dialogue in an action movie if it's just a good, enjoyable romp. But if it's slow to start, and you're kind of like, wait, why is this a Hawa? Yeah. Then everybody who sees it initially is going to be like, yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, and it really, the scenes with the kid, like, getting sent off to go do his hunting really drag.
I was going to say, it also sounds like a pacing issue, too.
Yeah,
like, if it takes 20 minutes to get to that.
It stops the movie. Yeah. Like, the movie stops dead in its tracks for, like, all of that intro. It is just all exposition and just...
set up to the big whatever.
Set up to. And it was just, like, grinding halt. Like, every time it came up. And I'm like, you know what? If it was Ted Nugent coming out there saying... and my son is going to go out there and he's going to bring us back the biggest buck ever, then you would have that's a wholly different movie.
I was just saying, that's a wholly different movie, and I'm sure people are like, it's Ted Nugent.
Yeah.
Ted Nugent makes a cameo in this film. How can I not see it?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sold already.
Yeah, exactly. Like, now I want to see that movie.
Now I want to see that movie that wasn't made, unfortunately. Yeah, it's funny enough that we're talking here, I'm sitting thinking of Independence Day of all things, which you'd forgive, like, sometimes the goofy, obvious rip-off directing with the opening shot, and you forgive the kind of goofy dialogue that Jeff Goldbluming, because the pacing is right there, like, like, get the quick flashes and shots. It moves along. The characters may be living their little lives, but the aliens are coming, and they're going to unleash heck. So you aren't, like, sitting there waiting for, like, when does the action start? Because that it's coming. Yeah. It's building. So, yeah. Isn't that all too often something that happens with action movies? It's like they show you all the good stuff in the trailers, and then to get to the good stuff, it's just like I gotta plod through like a half foot of snowy crap to get to
try and get to the fun part. Yeah, it takes entirely too long to get. Like, they try in spots, like, it's just all the stuff with the kid up till he actually gets to Sam Jackson is just plodding, like slow as molasses on a winter day. I mean, it is just kills the film right there.
All right.
And I think that something a bit more energetic with some backwoods guys from Appalachia, I think probably we could have made this into a film that would have done decent box office, just with that small change.
Yeah, I could see it.
And then you got an American kid saving America's president.
It just sounds like a weird thing, too. Like, I remember seeing that in the trailers thinking, like, so wait, why are there Norwegian terrorists? Aren't they, like, isn't like a good chunk of that area just sort of neutral, whatever? Yeah. And you're just like, what? They just suddenly one day decided, like, the 5 or 6 rebellious people up there in those Scandinavian countries decided, screw it, we're going to kidnap the president.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's like, wait, wouldn't this work better if it was anybody else but like them? It's just like,
yeah, it just did. On a couple of levels there, it didn't work. But I think that one small change would probably fix it.
Alrighty.
What do you got?
Well, I got a more recent movie, even though I believe the Big Game came out just last year.
This year.
Just this year? 2015?
Yep.
2015 was last year. Last
Sorry.
year. Ha!
Just barely.
Just barely last year. Big Game just came out a few months ago. Safe answer. Safe answer. This one came out just a couple weeks ago, and that is Hateful Eight by Quentin Tarantino. And whatever you've heard about, like, the political aspects of it, that obviously didn't help, but I take that back. When I was thinking about it in retrospect, having seen the film, I thought there was a part of me that honestly felt like, what if he went out there to generate controversy to try to get people in?
Yeah.
And it's...
As directors often do.
As directors often do. And what if it was like a ploy to get people who in the critical community tend to lean left and whatnot, like to get them on his side and say, this is a great movie. When I honestly think it was only an okay movie. And there were things in it that I felt like could have been done a lot better. I've seen some of Tarantino's stuff, and some of his stuff I really like. Others not so much. But this one just felt... And I'm going to try to be as spoiler-free as possible here, because Lunchbox hasn't seen it. He's going to want to see it. But there's not too much you could spoil from a Tarantino film, because, this one accidentally... Somebody leaked the script online, so if you really wanted to go see it...
If you wanted to know, you could find out.
You could find the entire script online. And plus, we're about 2-3 weeks from the movie came out, so you could go to various websites and have it spoiled for you.
Right.
In any case, being as kind as possible here. I kept trying to think of a good analogy for it, and it's like... Maybe it's a dumb one, but I don't care. It's like a hat rack that looks like garbage, like a falling apart hat rack that you're hanging a mink coat and fine jewelry. You're putting all sorts of beautiful dressing on it, but the core of it doesn't hold up for me. And to kind of expound on that, you can tell from the trailer, so I'll give you a little bit of a plot synopsis here. Okay, there's like Kurt Russell plays a was going to say bandit, that's not right, bounty hunter, taking in this woman played by, why am I going blank on her name?
I don't know.
Jennifer Jason Leigh, I believe. Yeah. Kurt Russell is taking this woman bandit for the bounty. And he and several other people are holed up in a cabin in the middle of Wyoming during a snowstorm. During a blizzard. They're stuck there. And it's got Samuel Jackson, Tim Roth, and a couple other character actors whose names escape me, but they're those guys kind of people that you say, oh, it's that guy. So I could tell you and you'd forget. Channing Tatum. Yeah, like those guys. Yeah. But the thing I have the most issue with is that it felt that it could have been so much better. And without getting into plot details, it has some good cinematography, but it feels wasted. It has some nice slow shots of like horses riding and driving through the snow, but it feels wasted. They have Ikinio, I always mispronounce his name. They have Marconi. Ikinio Marconi? The guy who like wrote some of the best Western music of all time, from like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and For a Few Dollars More. He wrote the soundtracks to those, and those are phenomenal. Those stand out. He was hired to do the soundtrack for this, and truthfully, I kept on waiting for like something that made it feel like something from him, and it just it felt like anybody could have composed it. But you're like, in a way, I was waiting for that kind of familiar tune to emerge, or some sort of something to grasp onto, because for crying out loud, like, Marconi, it's like, I'm waiting for that.
You're waiting for...
well, maybe not waiting for the kind of thing to go on, but I'm waiting for that kind of familiarity of it. That kind of, it's hard to put it, that style, that thing, that sort of like a tune that I could really chomp on to.
Right.
So there's that. You have this beautiful establishing shots. You have great costumes, great character portrayals by the actors, and the makeup and everything. Like these set dressings, everything surrounding the film was great, except for the overall, this not just the story, because the basic story of bounty hunter caught up in a cabin with suspicious people, and Samuel L. Jackson as the beaver. No, in there, because, well, it's a Quentin Tarantino film. How is he not going to have Samuel L. Jackson in there? And Samuel L. Jackson does do a fantastic job, and so does Kurt Russell and Tim Roth and the others. But
this is like praising with faint damning.
Yes, it is praising with faint damning. It's just the story was kind of weak. I have like an entire couple of bookshelves filled with, not just one, actually one entire bookshelf in my library is devoted to Western. So I'm familiar with the Western genre. I have several Westerns on video at home, and I know the whole, like, I've got a bounty hunter. Actually, Samuel L. Jackson also plays a bounty hunter. So I'm familiar with bounty hunters who may or may not be after the same goals, and them meeting, and what are they going to do, and all that kind of field that happens in the Western genre. You have those kind of stories. But there was, for lack of a better way of putting it, too much Tarantino. It's like there are things that kind of, it's like, are the thumbprint of the director. You recognize it as them being a part of the movie. And sometimes that's a really good thing. You're like, I'm going to go see this movie because Steven Spielberg directed it, and there's some kind of stylistic shots that he does that are great. But there was too much of the dialogue, and too many scenes in it, too many character scenes where they're like, Quentin Tarantino does these kind of breakaway shots where you like have a little bit of character establishment that aren't necessarily in sequence with the movie. He's done it in Reservoir Dogs, did it in Pulp Fiction, you know. So you get like a bit of establishment of the character, not right at the beginning, but like midway through or towards the end or something like that, which I'm fine with. I like that. I think that's an interesting kind of technique. But there are other times when he did it within the story that it's like it felt like there was a couple scenes in particular that were too modern in feel. Like, I'm not sure if you're trying to make Quentin Tarantino's version of a Western movie,
right,
or Quentin Tarantino wanted to make a Western, if that makes sense. I've always wanted to direct a Western, so I'm going to make a Western. So you have like all the dressings. You even have a famous composer doing the music for it. You have all the kind of shots you'd want to see in a Western. You have the kind of grimy people like doing the shady stuff and wondering what's going on. I want to figure out this whatever's going on with the plot. I want to be in on with the character, and they discover something, I discover something too. But you sit there, and there are parts in the movie that just plain pulled me out because it felt like Quentin Tarantinoing. Like there's a whole scene in it that I won't go into detail again, so as not to spoiler it, that threw me out. Not just because of the grossness of it, which happens in Tarantino films. You had somebody slice off a guy's ear in one film.
Right.
But it felt out of place for the time period. And so much else had been done so well to build up that, like, you have this 5-minute scene that felt like it belonged more in Pulp Fiction or something set in a more modern time. It's just like, this is not something that would have happened back then, which kind of sucks because you did such a good job establishing all this other stuff that probably would have happened back then, and that I've seen in other films where they've established a character in a certain way, or a book where they've established a character a certain way. So for him to, like, do this, or to have this backstory, or to have this scene, like, it doesn't just not make sense for the character. I get it that you're doing it because the title's The Hateful Eight, and you get the impression early on you want to have something like all the characters are a bit dirty. That's a reason why they're called The Hateful Eight. But this is just like, there's so many other ways that I could have rewritten this one scene that happened in the movie that would have made it feel like a Western, made it feel more in tone with the rest of the movie. Still, you could have even kept that kind of characteristic over-the-top violence that Tarantino loves. And, in my opinion, made a better movie rather than this segment that is totally...
It was just the segment just kind of pulled you out of the movie?
The segment jars you and pulls you out of the movie. I'm not a fan of Quentin Tarantino's, like, hyper-violence. But I was willing to put up with it because I knew it was coming and seen it in other films. But it was just sort of like, you could have done this in your little... That sounds kind of like, you could have done this in your own Quentin Tarantino style with, like, the kind of violence you want without doing it this way. And it just, it feels so atonal to the rest of the film that it threw me out. And you had mentioned with your film that there was, like, such a waste of Tilda Swinton, and it just felt like there was a waste of Morricone's music, that there could have been done more. It felt like a waste of some establishing shots that were very pretty but didn't do anything for the film. And maybe I'd see it again and say, oh, this establishes this. But I was looking for that because it had gotten critical praise. So there's that kind of time when you go in and you see a movie and you're looking for the things. I think that happens sometimes. You're looking not only for the characteristics that the director has, but also for those things like what made the critics praise this, what was good about this. And I can see why people praised it. There's a lot of things done lovely and well. It wouldn't surprise me if it was up for several awards come Oscar nomination time. But, man...
Well, in fairness, if you watch it in the...
You watch it in 70mm. I did not get a chance to see it in 70mm. But just
so you didn't see the 70mm?
I did not see the 70mm version, but I don't think that would have changed... my appreciation, because I appreciated just if you've seen something in 70mm or on like a larger screen or 70mm format, then you do, even if you aren't seeing it in that format, you could say this would look so much awesome, even bigger. It looked decent enough on that, and I did say, like, there's a part of me that kind of feels like I'm missing out a little bit on the grander vision. But this has nothing to do with the actual cinematography or anything like that. The cinematography was fantastic.
70mm is actually a different version.
Oh, they have actually different parts in it? I don't think they'd have a different part of this, because this is a fairly extended sequence.
Well, I was going to say that if you don't watch it in 70, then the establishing shots are shorter.
I know, but this isn't an establishing shot, unless, like...
No, but you were mentioning that they had these grand, sweeping establishing shots that seemed to do nothing. But in the 70, those are actually longer establishing shots.
Okay, I'll grant you that, but the particular scene that had thrown me out, I don't think that wasn't set up with an establishing shot, and it's a.
Well, I'm sure it wouldn't have been that particular scene. Probably not different.
It wouldn't.
I'm just
not
saying
played out
there's
differently.
like these longer shots and shot not necessarily in a different way, but cut down.
Yeah,
it's like the 10 or so minutes longer in the 70mm.
Yeah,
So he's just got longer shots because he says, well, it's going to play on the 70 and it's not going to play if you're not watching it in 70. There's some people that want to go see it in 70 and some people that want to watch it at home.
Yeah.
And it's not going to play if you're not watching it in 70.
And I understand that. I understood going in that there was not as much of that, and I would have loved to seen more beautiful shots of horses riding slow-mo through the snow, because they were very beautiful, yeah, if it got an award, or nominated at least, for cinematography, that wouldn't surprise me.
You wouldn't be too mad at that?
I wouldn't be too mad and wouldn't be too surprised at that either, because there's just something that's very beautiful, graceful, and elegant about horses riding through snow in slow-mo, or shots of the Rocky Mountains and forests and stuff covered in snow, that without trying to knock Tarantino here, but it's almost hard to screw that up. You have to work hard to make a snow-covered forest and mountain range look ugly. You have to not know what the blip you're doing at all, like from back to front to make it look poor. But it does take kind of special eye to make it look grand. That said, it's just, again, don't want to be spoilery. It's just that there's a particular scene that could have been done with his kind of style that would have still kept it in a kind of Western feel.
Yeah.
That it didn't ruin the movie, but it kept it from being a better than average movie. And to me, it ends up being average, because it's just like, you did this, and yeah, you wasted. God, I love film soundtracks so much that I felt like his music talents were kind of
underutilized.
He was underutilized. There was a lot of scenes that could have used music, that it was just quiet, and I kept on waiting for something to kick in. There was a few sound cues music cues, I should say, that were well done, and you wanted more of it, but it wasn't nearly enough. And maybe that was his decision to just kind of underplay it, but I was disappointed.
Sometimes the absence of sound,
it didn't help in this case.
It's more important than having the sound present.
The
music drops out, it really makes you hyper aware of what's going on.
No, it does, and I knew the cases where that was happening, but there were other times it was just like, this scene could use some music, because it doesn't need the kind of sound focus. And it had good sound design too. There's something, again, that's very visceral about the sound of boots on wood clinking across, and the sound of spurs and such, that you do it well, and it really has an powerful effect on you. I don't know why, but it does. And
we've all seen so many westerns.
You've seen so many westerns, and there's
that.
As somebody's walking across to talk to somebody, you know the difference between when you don't hear it and when you do hear it. There's that kind of menace, and when you hear it, and there's no menace when you don't hear it. But yeah, it could have used more music too.
As opposed to hearing somebody tap dance across it.
Yeah, we could have like a whole segment on sound design. But yeah, minus Hateful Eight, it could have been better. Like, whatever you have to say about the controversy itself, the film itself, it was just too average. And I would put that as to why it hasn't done well at the box office. It's not just like,
well, aside from being up against
a tidal wave known as Star Wars,
and
aside from it being up against fierce competition, I think it still could have done well if the story would have been stronger, if that scene would have been stronger, because it's a long scene and it throws you out. It does not. It's right smack dab in the middle of film, and it's which sucks, because if it would have been at the very beginning, it would have wouldn't have been as Tarantino-ish if it would have been at the beginning, truthfully. But it would have been you would have forgotten it, or maybe forgiven it towards the end of the film. Yeah. But with it right in the middle, it kind of like dampens your enthusiasm that you had at the beginning and paints the rest of the film, so you're still going back to that scene. And you might make a case for like, oh, that's what he wanted to happen, so that you know that. And it's just like, no, it did not do that for me in a good way. Because if you have that central thing happen in the middle that you're supposed to think about for the entire film, and it really works in a good way, that's great. But if you're just distracted by it, I don't know. I'm going to wrap this up because I just go on.
I imagine that all of you that have seen Hateful Eight
know exactly
what he's talking about. I have no idea. I'll have to wait until I watch it, and then I'll come back and tell you how much I loved that scene and thought that it was integral to making the entire thing work, because that tends to be how Jester and I view films.
Yeah, it's true. Time now for Strained Metaphors with Lunchbox.
Who the hell is interrupting my kung fu? Of course, from Black Dynamite.
Yeah.
That's really, of course, kung fu is, anything that you train and study at, and really kind of using it here as a metaphor for really anything that you're trying to work on, and somebody comes in and interrupts you. At work, I work on the phones. I answer phones all day. And I have had a steady procession of various people that want to come sit down next to me and tell me how I'm not doing my job right. Excuse me, I'm on the phone. Like, you want to try and talk to me while I'm talking to somebody else? It's really distracting. You want to talk to me in between, and you're in the middle of a thought, and I get a call? I have to take this call, and you need to shut up now and go away. If you want to talk to me, how about you schedule me some time when I'm not taking calls, when I'm not trying to deal with something else? But anyway, but we've all had those things. There's a personal pet peeve of mine, but we've all had those things where you're trying and you're in the middle of doing something and somebody comes along, and next time they come around, just tell them, "Why the hell are you interrupting my kung fu?"
Don't interrupt somebody else's kung fu. Don't interrupt your weekly lifestyle. And don't forget to tune in to us next time here on the One More Rewrite podcast for Lunchbox.
Night.
I'm Jester. Toodaloo.